Imagine this. You wake up one morning, check your bank account, and your Social Security payment is there, but it's smaller. Not by a little, by a lot, 23% smaller, and the worst part? Nobody warned you. Nobody sat you down and explained what was coming. You just noticed. And in that moment, everything you planned, your rent, your groceries, your medication, all of it suddenly doesn't add up anymore. Now I know what you're thinking, that can't happen. The government wouldn't let that happen, and honestly, that's exactly what they want you to think. Because right now there is a benefit reduction coming that most beneficiaries have no idea about. And the people who do know about it, the ones sitting in Congress, they have done almost nothing to stop it, for 40 years. So today we need to talk about this, because this isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. This is your life, this is your retirement, and this is a conversation that is way overdue. Let's start with what's actually happening. According to the Social Security Trustees report, not my opinion, not speculation, this is the official government report, the Social Security Trust Fund is heading toward a critical point. When that point hits, benefits could automatically be cut by around 23%, and the way the math currently works, we're talking roughly 81 more checks at your current amount before that cut kicks in. 81 checks. For a lot of people, that's less than 7 years away. Now sit with that for a second, because I want you to really feel what that means in real life. We're not talking about some abstract policy debate. We're talking about seniors who are already stretching every dollar, people who are already choosing between their blood pressure medication and a full cart of groceries, people who already feel like the system was never really designed with them in mind. And now the system might cut their check by nearly a quarter. Honestly, this is where things start to get uncomfortable, because this isn't a surprise to anyone in Washington. They've known about this for decades. The trustees' report has been sounding the alarm year after year, and yet somehow, someway, Congress has managed to look the other way every single time, year after year, decade after decade. A lot of beneficiaries right now are feeling something between frustration and genuine fear, and you can understand why. When you've paid into a system your entire working life, when you've trusted that the money would be there, and then you hear numbers like this, it shakes something deep. Some people are starting to wonder if the cuts are actually inevitable at this point. Like maybe we've waited too long, and now there's no painless way out of this. Others believe that Congress will wait until the very last moment right before the cuts hit and then rush some kind of emergency fix that still leaves beneficiaries worse off than they deserve to be. There's growing speculation that the whole point of the delay is political, that certain people in power actually benefit from the confusion, that keeping beneficiaries uncertain, worried, and divided makes it easier to eventually push through changes that would never survive a fully informed public debate. And what stands out to me personally is how consistent this pattern has been. It's not one party. It's not one administration. This has been going on across Republican and Democratic governments alike. Nobody gets a pass here. Because the reality is, nothing meaningful has been done. And that's not an accident, that's a choice. Now here's something a lot of people misunderstand, and I think it's worth clearing up because there's a lot of bad information floating around out there. Social Security is not going bankrupt. Let me say that again. Social Security is not going bankrupt. The program will still exist. Money will still come in from working Americans paying into the system through their payroll taxes. Right now, about 91% of every Social Security check you receive comes from people who are currently working. Only about 9% comes from the trust fund reserves. But as more baby boomers retire and fewer workers are supporting more beneficiaries, that gap keeps growing. And here's the part nobody is really talking about openly: when those trust fund reserves run out, not if, but when, unless something changes, the law as it currently stands would require benefits to be cut to match only what's coming in. That's where the 23% figure comes from. It's not a guess. It's not fear-mongering. It's basic math that the government's own report confirms. At the end of 2023, there was still about $2.6 trillion sitting in the trust fund. Money is still coming in, interest is still being earned, but more is going out than is coming in, about $100 billion more per year, and that gap is going to keep widening. So when politicians say Social Security is fine, technically they're not lying. It will be fine for a while, but fine for a while and sustainable long-term are two very different things, and beneficiaries deserve to know the difference. Here's where things get really interesting and a little bit uncomfortable for some people in very high places. There is a solution. It's not complicated. It's not some radical new idea. And honestly, if you explain it to most Americans, the majority of them agree with it immediately. The solution is removing or significantly raising the cap on Social Security payroll taxes. Right now, there is a limit on how much of your income gets taxed for Social Security. That limits it's at $184,500. Every dollar you earn above that amount, No Social Security tax at all. So if you're making $50,000 a year, you're paying into Social Security on every single dollar you earn, every paycheck, all year long. But if you're making $5 million a year, you hit that cap in the first 2 weeks of January. The rest of the year, all 350 days of it, you're paying nothing into the system that millions of Americans depend on. Some people are starting to realize how significant that gap really is. Because when you do the math, a person earning $5 million a year has an effective Social Security tax rate of less than 0.5%, while someone earning $40,000 a year pays the full 6.2% on every dollar. The way I see it, that's not a tax system. That's a loophole the size of a canyon, and fixing it, making high earners pay into the system at the same rate that working class people do, would go a long way toward closing the funding gap that's been building for decades. But here's the part that might surprise you. This fix has been discussed, debated, and proposed for years, and it keeps getting blocked, not because the public doesn't support it. Polling consistently shows that most Americans across party lines support making higher earners contribute more. It gets blocked because of who funds political campaigns, because of where the lobbying money comes from, because the people who would pay more under this change are often the same people writing the checks that keep politicians in office. And this is where it stops being a policy conversation and becomes something much more personal. Think about the seniors who built this country. People who worked 30, 40 years in jobs that were hard on their bodies and their spirits. People who were told their whole lives that if they worked hard, paid in, and played by the rules, Social Security would be there for them. And it was. For a long time, it was. But there's growing fear now that the deal is quietly being broken. Not with a big announcement, not with a dramatic press conference. Just slowly, gradually, through years of inaction and delay and political theater while the clock keeps ticking. A lot of beneficiaries feel like they're being managed rather than helped, like the system is designed to give them just enough information to stay calm, but not enough to get truly angry. And what happens next may surprise a lot of people, because that anger, quiet as it is right now, is building. You can see it in comment sections. You can hear it in phone calls to representatives. You can feel it in the way people talk about retirement now, not with excitement, but with anxiety, with a kind of tired uncertainty that nobody should have to carry after a lifetime of work. Now, none of this is completely set in stone, and I want to be honest about that. There are still possibilities here that could change the outcome. Congress could act. They could raise the cap. They could adjust the benefit formula. They could find a combination of changes that extend solvency for decades without cutting a single check. It's possible. Other countries have reformed their retirement systems. It's not as difficult as politicians make it sound. There's also speculation that the closer we get to that critical point, the more real and unavoidable this becomes, the more political pressure will build to do something. Some believe that's actually the only way change happens in Washington. Not proactively, not wisely, but at the last possible moment when there's no other option. And maybe that's the most honest thing I can say about where we are right now. We're not at the last moment yet. There's still time, but that time is moving faster than most people realize. So here's where I leave you today. The 23% benefit cut that's built into the current math is not a rumor. It's not a political talking point from one side or the other. It's a number that comes from the government's own official report, and the fact that millions of beneficiaries have never heard it explained clearly. That alone should tell you something about how this conversation has been managed, because you deserve better than vague reassurances. You deserve the full picture, and then you deserve to decide, with all of that information, what you're going to do about it. The real question now is whether the people who have the power to fix this will finally feel enough pressure to act, or whether millions of hardworking Americans who trusted the system their entire lives are quietly being set up for a very difficult surprise. And that question? Nobody in Washington seems to be in a hurry to answer it.